This is Brian Edwards. I am a medical doctor, retired. I have Alzheimer's diagnosed in December 2017. I wrote a book. I am waiting for when I forget I have Alzheimer's, but my desire is to show people that even though you get a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, it's not the end of the world and you have a few good years of life yet left. So I am writing a series of books of each year of my diagnosis. Year one is already out, published February 2019. Anyway, I read this book, Moonwalking with Einstein, and it taught me how to memorize things by putting them in a memory palace in my brain. I use my house, so let me start out, how I've memorized the countries of Europe. First, start with going to the mailbox, and this is where I put the small countries. So I start with Andorra, and that's a wool sweater that I can cover Maltese cross with, and that's Malta. And then moving on, there's Monaco where you play poker, and I put all the poker chips in a submarine, which is San Marino. And then there's smelly cheese in the box also, which is Liechtenstein. And finally, I like to add Faroe Islands. And I remember that because I get my 23andMe application in there. And Faroe Islands had all their people undergo genetic testing. Now I go up the steps, and this is pretty easy because the steps are like climbing the Alps. So that's Switzerland, Italy, and Austria. Now I enter the house. Now, the big room in the entrance is the Balkans. And on my left side is a wooden statue of a Negro woman, and that reminds me of Montenegro. And then at my right foot, there's an elephant, which reminds me of, uh, well, I forget. And then next above that is a wooden clock, which for some reason reminds me of Moldova. And then I go around to the clock on the other corner, and that's a musical clock, and it reminds me of Romania gypsy music. Then there are two blue vases, which remind me, oh, there's a country with two names, Bosnia and Herzegovina. And then I go over to the angel statue, which reminds me of Bulgaria, which isn't very vulgar at all. And then I go to the table, which reminds me of Hungary, and I'll be getting to the kitchen later. So first I go to a bust. I had a bronze bust made of my head and arm, and this is kind of vain. So that reminds me of Slovenia. And then I remember I've got my hand up, and that's like I'm serving. And so that reminds me of Serbia. And then I go past a big picture of waterfalls, which reminds me of beer going over the waterfalls. And Croatia has really good beer. So Croatia. Then there's a banister going upstairs, which reminds me of Albania. Now I go into the bedroom, and there's a four-posted bed, which reminds me of Poland. I look across to the TV, reminds me of a TV pattern, which is Czech Republic. Then I look at this love couch that we've got in the corner, and I put a Volkswagen on it, and so that reminds me of Slovakia. I turn to crane my head as my wife walks in, and that reminds me of Ukraine. Then my wife is dressed very prettily, and that reminds me of beautiful. And then I see she's wearing a Russian hat, and that's Belarusa, Belarusa, right? And then I'm remembering I'm hungry again, so I go back to the kitchen, and there the refrigerator reminds me of Iceland, and inside are the vegetables, which remind me of Greenland. And then I'm looking at the Danish cheese that's there, Denmark, and the cold cuts, which Swedish meatballs, Sweden, herring, Finland, Norway. Oh, I like apples. They have good apples in Finland, so Finland. No, that's Norway. Pardon me, Norway. And so then I just go down the line of Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, and I now realize I want to go out and rush Russia to the hot tub where I want to swim to Greece, Portugal, Spain, France, Germany. And as I put down the garage door leaving, I remember the Low Countries, Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. And so people say, well, what about these other places? And I say, okay, there are outliers, like Cyprus, right? So I'm in Turkey and I want to go have hummus in Cyprus on the Greek side. And then I remember, I want some Georgian peaches with my meal. So I go to Georgia and I need a basket to hold the peaches. And so that's Armenia. And I realized, gee, all these places I've been, it's all like Azakistan. That's it.